Okay, this is another shortcut factoring lesson. Now, when we have our trinomials, we always do the x where we have a times c for the product and your b is your sum. The only difference is when a is 1, we can use a shortcut. So we do not have to do the full x method. So in fact, we don't have to do the factor by grouping, which is fabulous. Now, I'll prove it to you in a second. We still need to find the two numbers on the side, but I'll show you how you can go straight from that to the final answer. It's really, really easy. So just know it only works when there's a 1 as what we call the leading coefficient, or the a, in front of the variable squared. And it doesn't matter what the variable is, okay? So in number 1, a times c is 1 times 12, and the b is 7. We know 3 times 4 is 12, and 3 plus 4 is 7. Well, the cool thing is we can go straight to the final answer. We separate that x squared into x times x, and then see this plus 3 here is one factor, and the plus 4 is our other factor. We don't even have to do any factor by grouping. But this would not work for any, well, hold on. If I did a double distribution to check, x times x is x squared. But when our old lesson, do you remember this with the full x method? If I tried to do this, like on this, I'd separate it into x plus 2 and x plus 3 from this information. But what is x times x? It's not 2x squared. So the shortcut doesn't work because our a was not 1. Just trust me on this. So when your a is not 1, you still have to do all the factor by grouping steps. There's just no way around it. But we love to see when a is 1, because then we can go straight to the final answer with the sign of the two numbers and the variable separated into the two factors. So right away, I know it's going to be h times h to get your h squared. My a times c is 18, and my b value is 9. Well, 3 times 6 is 18, and 3 plus 6 is 9, and since they're both positive, I just do plus 3 and plus 6 for each factor, and boom, you're done. So let me go to a negative. Okay, so the key is just finding the proper pair of numbers. So in other words, in this case, well, a times c, or 1 times negative 18, is negative 18. Our sum is 3. So we know we need a positive 6 and a negative 3. And I'm going to separate that n squared into n times n. And then the positive 6 finishes the first factor. And the minus 3 finishes the second factor. Boom, you're done. Okay. As long as you get the two numbers with the correct sign that satisfies the a times c and the b, you're good. Now, let's try number 15. So I know I have my 1b squared, so right away I know I can separate that into b times b. And I can do the shortcut right away. So a times c is negative 63, and my sum is negative 2. Well, I know 9 times 7 is 63, so if I have more negatives, it would be negative 9 and positive 7. And that works out. So then the two factors just become b minus 9 and b plus 7. And we can go ahead and do the double distribution to check. In fact, let me do that worked out so that you can see that. So b times b, you have your b squared, b times 7 plus 7b, and then negative 9 times b, negative 9b, and negative 9 times 7 is negative 63. So when we combine those middle terms, our final answer, when we double distribute, we get negative, or b squared minus 2b minus 63, which is exactly what we have here. Okay, let's look at a couple with more than one variable. So on 27, now I want you to see something. We still have the 1x squared. It still works that we can split up the x squared and x times x. We still do our a times c, but we don't just do the coefficient, not the variables. So 1 times 42 is 42, and our b value is 13. Well, 6 times 7 is 42, and 6 plus 7 is 13. So, since they're both positive, the only difference we need to do to finish off the factors, so our plus 6 and our plus 7, see this y squared? We need to separate that basically separate the y squareds on the 6 and the 7. So the second of each factor. And there you go. So like on number 29, I automatically know I can separate the m squares into m times m. So I can do my shortcut. So 1 times negative 24 is negative 24. My sum is 2. I need a negative times a positive, but more positive, so it's 4 times 6. So I have my minus 4 and our plus 6, but because I have that second n variable, I separate the n squared into n times n on the minus 4 and the 6. Now, I haven't showed you this yet, but if we do the double distribution, you'll see how you get the middle term with both variables. So m times m, you have your m squared. M times 6n is plus 6mn, because we do it alphabetically. Negative 4n times n is negative 4mn. We still always write the variables alphabetically. And negative 4n times 6n is negative 24n squared. And I'm not even going to write that, but here you can see the middle term would add to your 2mn. And then you still have your first and your last, so it works. Now, the last part of the lesson, I will have you pause and do these on your own to check the answer key to make sure you're on track. But look at the multi-step. Same thing as always. Always look for your overall GCF, then factor the trinomial, and like in this lesson, because everything was just like a 1x squared, 1a squared, whatever the variable is, the leading term was 1, we could use the shortcut. So we're going to do that here. So on 31, the GCF is 4, because I can divide 4 into every term. So that becomes n squared plus 3n plus 2. Now, I know my final answer, because I can do the shortcut, is going to have the overall GCF 4, and I'm going to separate that n, right? And then go straight into my x method. A times c is 2, and my sum is 3. Well, 2 times 1 is 2, and 2 plus 1 is 3. So I just have my plus 2 and plus 1 for my final answer. Little tip, guys. I would not dream of doing the x method if there's an overall GCF first. Because why make it harder on yourself when you can reduce it by the overall GCF first? And then the x becomes pretty simple. So right away in 33, I see the GCF is 3. So I have y squared minus 5y plus 4. And I know since I have a 1y squared, I can automatically put my GCF, and then I can split up the y's, the y squared into y times y. And then all I need is my a times c is 4, and my b is -5, so I need a -4 and a -1. To get a negative times a negative is positive, and a negative plus a negative is more negative. So then, and it doesn't matter which one you put first, but you've got the -4 in one factor and the -1 in the other factor. Okay. So number 35, the overall GCF is 2. And I have a b squared plus 5b plus 6. So I know I can separate that b squared into b times b. And, well, that a times c, which is 6, and my sum is 5. 2 times 3 is 6, and 2 plus 3 is 5. So I just have my plus 2 and my plus 3 to finish out the 2 factors, and I'm done. So pause the video and check the answer key, and